Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
A couple months ago, we did a special series of podcast episodes featuring FBA aggregators, investors, brokers, bankers, and some sellers that had recently sold their businesses to these investors. It was one of the most successful podcast series we've ever done at Buy Box Experts. And now we're adding a new sequence. We're going to be talking to a number of mastermind leaders, talking to them about what their members are saying, what they're thinking about as they look at all this investment money now flowing into the space. I hope you enjoy our series over the coming weeks. And I want to thank the folks at Getida, our sponsor for this series. Getida is a global leader in Amazon FBA auditing reimbursements, analyzing Amazon data and reconciling FBA inventory, filing claims for reimbursement on the behalf of sellers. Check out getida.com to learn more. Enjoy our series. Hi, I'm James Thompson, one of the hosts of the Buy Box Experts podcast. I'm a partner with Buy Box Experts and the former business head of the Selling on Amazon team at Amazon, as well as the first account manager for the Fulfillment by Amazon program. I'm the co-author of a couple of books on Amazon, including the recent book, Controlling Your Brand in the Age of Amazon. Today's episode is brought to you by Buy Box Experts. Buy Box Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. When you hire Buy Box Experts, you receive the strategy optimization and marketing performance to succeed on Amazon. We also help investors with due diligence services. Go to buyboxexperts.com to learn more. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to send a big shout out to the team at Getida, a global leader in Amazon FBA auditing and reimbursements. Getida analyzes your Amazon data, reconciles your FBA inventory, and files claims for reimbursements on your behalf. To learn more, check out getida.com. Today, our guest is Norm Farrar, co-founder of the Centurion League, a mastermind group for Amazon-centric private label sellers. Norm is also the host of the podcast Lunch with Norm, as well as founder of HONU Worldwide, a sourcing and logistics company, AMZ and Beyond, a coaching and consulting firm, and prReach, an influencer marketing company. Norm, welcome, and thank you for joining us today on the Buy Box Experts podcast.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
So, Norm, I want to talk specifically about your mastermind group and the types of interactions you're having today with private label sellers of all different sizes. Tell me a little bit more about this group and what differentiates it from some of the other mastermind and seller groups out there.
Well, probably, this is going to sound strange, but probably one of the biggest changes or biggest reasons that we're a little bit different is we have full-time staff. We've got 4 full-time staff working with us that help us do our research, to help us get the updates, to feed it along to our members. But the other part to this is Tim Jordan's my partner, a very knowledgeable guy. So he gets to meet a ton of people doing the AM, PM podcast and bring that forward over to us. We've got the Lunch with Norm, which is, that helps us with the, the network and spreading out the material. But part of probably the biggest thing that we have is being able to tell people and work with people. It's funny that I know what we're going to be talking a little bit about today, but we're talking about how to build their businesses. We're talking about a person coming in with nothing, right, and leveraging the experience, not only from Tim and I, a bunch of experts that are members, but also people that are within. And we've got not only the couple hours a week that we do the training, we've got a very interactive Facebook group, and we concentrate on SOPs. So we want to show people, how to scale and automate their business. I think that's fairly unique from, the other, a lot of the other, not podcasts, but training platforms that are out there.
Right. So let's talk about some of that automation and SOPs and so on. And let's talk about it within the context of building a business that, as of the last 12 months or so, there are now realistic options for private label sellers to get to a point where there are outside investors interested in potentially buying their business. I'd love to get your take on what has happened to create all this recent interest in these private label businesses when many of these types of businesses, they've been around for 20 years since the beginning of the Amazon marketplace. Why now? What's going on?
Well, we've been around for a while in Amazon marketplace, both of us. Yep. And we saw it back in 2014, try to sell a business. And people were saying, Amazon will not let you sell your brand. It was crazy. And all of a sudden, people started to see that Amazon is a real legit business. You can actually make something and some serious multiples if you did your research and you had the right deal. So the more and especially now with COVID, because e-commerce is expanding so quickly, the cream of the crop are going to rise, and they're the ones that are going to take advantage of really what's out there in the marketplace right now. It's just learning how to do it properly.
So the level of sophistication that one needed to become successful as a private label seller 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, there was still an awful lot of throwing stuff up against the wall, and some stuff would stick, some stuff would not stick.
Yeah.
But there are now folks that are saying, wait a minute, I know exactly what I need to do. I'm going to jump in, and in 2 years, I'm going to exit with a very successful business. I'm going to have something that we're going to call a brand. Someone's going to buy it from me. That's a much more of a mechanical roadmap that people are now putting in place. What do you think is going to happen over the next couple of years as people get more sophisticated now that there are these external investors excited about the possibility of buying their business?
Well, first, I think people really do have to manage expectations. There's a lot of malarkey out there about, what the multiples are, what valuation, getting things in order. And what are buyers really looking, these aggregators that are lined up, what are they looking for? And learning how not to be taken advantage of. I think the biggest thing right now that we can do as sellers on Amazon is not just sell on Amazon. You're a real business. Treat it as a real business right from the get-go. And that means building the brand, doing your research, not just jumping in. Understand where you can go, do real competitive analysis. If you don't know how to do it, hire somebody, knowing where and how to spend money. But at the end of the day, that brand, if you can build a brand that's consistent and solid, if you're the authority in the industry and you can build trust, you're going to get sales, and that's going to help you out. But it's all about consistency with that brand. And like you just said, people in the past, you could have been selling anything. It didn't matter anything about brand. But now that Amazon is becoming more about brand and building a community, we have to do it. It's a captivated audience. And then we have to go. For me, I've heard this from different people that, only stick on Amazon. Well, you know what? I'm too old of a dog. One-legged stools, I'm not. I want to be diverse. I want to be able to go out there and take that brand and take it on to Shopify or take it on to Walmart. And you can't just trust Amazon. You'll get that email one day, and who knows what'll end up happening.
Right. So let's talk about how the conversation has changed within your mastermind. What are some of the new questions being asked today, or the questions that are being asked a lot more than you've ever seen before?
Well, first of all, it sounds so crazy, but is it saturated? That's one.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And fear of the Chinese. Why do you need fear if you've got different types of audiences out there, one that are going to target and be product cannibalized, go for it. If you want to make pennies rather than dollars, do it.
Yep.
But okay, how can I compete with the Chinese? All right, higher perceived value. Learn how to build that brand. Talking about what do I need to do at the very beginning. So, talking through, do your proper accounting, put together repeatable tasks through SOPs, build up a staff, and a loyal staff. Don't go and pay pennies on the dollar, build it like they are your staff, depending on you. So that's another area. And then talking with experts, where are what can I do to properly create the most optimized valuation that I can get? And that's talking probably to a broker. Don't wait until you get approached. Why don't you sell when you're at your high, you're doing really well, and you've done everything you could to possibly control your expenses, to maximize what you're doing, and to just basically have a turnkey operation. That, I think, is probably the most important thing when an aggregator is coming to look at you. Yeah. Can you just hand it over to them?
So one of the things that I realize in talking to someone who is actively engaged with sellers like you are today, you are a source of information for many sellers. For folks who are coming to you who haven't been using your services up to this point, where are they getting their information that ultimately leads them to you? Because quite frankly, there is a lot of malarkey out there. So as I work through all these new additional issues as a seller that, oh my gosh, how do I position myself so that somebody will buy my business? Where do you go to get good information on those types of issues?
There are, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that try to do it on the cheap. They'll go to YouTube, they'll watch videos from 2017, and they're getting great information. I like to tell people to spend money. If you're going to make this an investment into yourself, you've got to go and find a course. Find a great course. Take the course. Then you don't want to go to 10 different gurus telling you 10 different things. Find one or two people that fit your personality and listen to them. I hear so many people that are so conflicted, and they've got so many apps, and they've got $400 a month here, $200 here.
Right.
It's not worth it, and it just muddies the water. So find a good course, find a good mastermind, and probably as a business person, find a good guru, or not guru. Find a mentor.
Yes,
somebody that can really help you grow.
So you talked a moment ago about this whole concern about saturation, and the flip side of saturation is if this is viewed as a pot of gold for sellers. Oh my gosh, I got to hurry up and get a piece of the action here. Mm-hmm. That being said, is this going to be, in your view, this opportunity to sell your brand? Is this something that's going to stick around for several years? Or is there a sweet spot where sellers should be saying, I need to get my act together, get my business ready to sell in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? What are your thoughts around how long this is going to last? And if it is going to continue to last, what does it look like a couple of years out from now?
Well, I always start the business with the exit plan in mind. But if let's say I'm working in the business and all of a sudden I'm noticing that there's a trend, or the trend is starting to peter off, you definitely do want to sell high. You don't want to be selling when you're on a decline. It's going to kill you. So that's one of the first things to take a look at. Constantly look at your competition. And it's important to see if they're, because we're all entrepreneurs, if they're pivoting on a dime, take a look at what's good, bad, and ugly. I call it the Brady Bunch effect. I go in, and if my even on launch, but if my competitors are changing something, Amazon comes up with something new, I test it out, and it could be on PickFu or it could be on Usability Hub, but I just see if I'm at least at the level of my competitor, my top competitors, or better. And if I'm not, then I go back to the drawing board to keep that going. The other thing is, where can you diversify your brand? Do you have, if you're selling soap, are you going to get into bath bombs? You want to bring in other products that you can leverage off of the brand. And probably another area that if you could, while you're gaining speed, can you get into recurring revenue? That's a beautiful business model. I love recurring revenue. And if you can do that as a brand owner, then that's great. It's always coming in. It's really just monitoring. At the end of the day, I talk to a broker. I would get the information, see what advice that they would give, and then start to build out everything that we're talking about today, and make sure that you're not headed for a decline. If you are, then I would be trying to sell fairly quickly. I don't think there's going to be any time soon that you're going to see, just Amazon, this piece of gold that you're looking for. There's lots of gold out there. There's lots of little nuggets out there. And everybody, as long as they're action oriented and put things into place and don't think it's a get quick. I hate seeing these guys on Lamborghinis and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a business. It takes
cryptocurrency. Here we come.
Yeah, here we go. There we go.
So let me ask you this. You've been working with Amazon sellers for quite some time. If I came to you today and said, I want to get into this space, I want to become a private label seller, there's a number of different issues where maybe the discipline should have been there in past generations of Amazon sellers. But let's talk about today, best practices. I'm jumping into the space of private label branding, private label selling. Talk to me about operating procedures. How do I need to think about getting operating procedures together when I'm new and I'm trying to learn, what works, what doesn't work?
There's a great book on the market. I had a hyper growth company back in the 90s. I was losing it. I read E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Yep.
Changed everything, like just systemizing. I went through the E-Myth Academy and got everything in place. That's probably the very first thing if you're looking at getting into the business. Prior to even sourcing anything, I know in my head that any repeatable task, I'm going to put it into an SOP, and I can explain that very quickly in a couple of seconds. But it's going through each system methodically, but not what-ifing it to death.
Yep.
You can't say, oh, what happens if this happens? Or what happens if you can look at it? If it looks like the planets have lined up, then go for it. We're doing something right now. This is another unique challenge that we do in our mastermind. Tim and I are putting up our own money, and we're putting this thing called $1 million challenge. So we've got 12 months to make $1 million in sales.
Okay.
And this is how we do it. This is how you do your competitive research. This is how you're doing your product opportunities. And it's just kind of structured that way. Like when you go in, especially for your competitive analysis, you've really got to take a look. People skip over that, I think, too quickly. Product opportunity, people think, oh, let's go to Alibaba. Go into a retail store, check it out, talk to the salespeople in the retail store. I learned that on my podcast. I had a guy on talking about it almost a year ago, and it was, wow, that's an interesting idea. Try it. It works.
So what did you learn? What are you learning?
Sorts of things. Why are people buying the product? What colors? What packaging? What's working in retail that's might not work in Amazon, and take advantage of that opportunity. That's a cool one. Go in and you can go and see what's selling, what's moving, what are the leaders in the category. They might not be on Amazon, and you can take over that trend or try to get in.
Right.
And I'll give you a great example: toe fungus remover.
Okay.
Went in, you saw the bottle. I had a company come to me talking to me about toe fungus remover. Now, I did proper research, but I just noticed that it's a brown bag product. It's medicinal. Most of it was ugly. And so we changed the packaging to make it natural and wellness oriented, gave people a feel good, up the perception so we could get $24 instead of $9.
Yep.
And treated it like I treated it like a real business, where all the others had, including this guy, he had a powder blue package with a yellow toe dripping. It looked like oozing warts. I mean, it was horrible, but we changed it, and we got those sales from, he had it on the market for 18 months doing $1,000. And we had it as high as $124,000 a month because we changed the messaging.
Wow.
So it's easy. It's not easy to do, but if you see a niche, you can go after it. And if you know a little bit about it, like pet or beauty or whatever it is, go for it. But one of probably the biggest tip I could give today, product innovation. If you can go, Kevin King is great for this, product innovation. So you go out, you find a product. How can that plastic shoe stretcher that 7 other people are selling be different? Either color, material, quality, something, packaging. And that's how you can help build your brand.
So what are you telling, or what are sellers should be thinking right now in terms of the time to actually build a brand before they can get to the point where potentially selling it is realistic? 2 years ago, the concept of selling it was foreign. Today, I'm hearing people getting in and out in 16 months. That's not necessarily the norm, but how long do you think it takes to build something that constitutes a real brand with real following, meaningful story, and so on and so forth, that an investor would say, I'm ready to buy that from you?
Yeah, or steal it from you if it's too early. So, and that's why I'm going to come back and say, my thought is 18 to 24 months. If you can sell within that time period, that's a reasonable time. If you're going over 24 months, I don't know. But I think that's a reasonable amount of time to get a fair deal. And, it gives you to sell on the high rather than low.
What does it mean to build a successful brand on Amazon? And I'm asking you this question as a guy who was a marketing academic, and branding had certain things in place. A brand on Amazon isn't necessarily the same thing. It's not necessarily a P&G type brand where you've got big billboards and big end of aisle displays and so on. But what does it mean to be a successful brand on Amazon?
Well, a successful brand, it's a micro brand. So these are, we're building a brand from scratch and trying to play with the big boys. Mm-hmm. You don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you have to know where to spend your money. If you're going to a guy on Fiverr and you're spending $5 on a logo, doesn't say much about your brand. But right from the get-go, if you're thinking about building up that brand, you've got to get quality, the branding, like get spec cards and make sure that you're not bastardizing the logo. It's always consistent. I do a whenever I'm getting into a brand or into a product launch, I always try to do a pre-launch to help build the brand prior to launch. And that will, maybe I'll go and I'll get a traditional press release. I might try to build up my influencers to get it going. I'll build out the website just so I can drive traffic either to the website for some deal, hooking them back over to Amazon.
Yes.
And my social media. So that's the start of a brand. Your brand then is getting and building that culture, the culture within your business. That might be you buying into it. But for me, it's my VAs or my contractors or my employees buying into what we're trying to achieve and living the brand. It's so important. And you'll see this with really good franchises that they have the proper training. And I say proper training because as a single Amazon seller and you go on this sales roller coaster, right? You've got your brand, you've got this product, but then you're working 25 hours a day, you hire a VA. You don't properly train that person. They don't know what they're doing. And then you're done with them. You start screaming at them because they don't know what they do, and you take back the job and you wait till you go 25 hours again. And it's a sales roller coaster. You never get it right. And this is where the E-Myth taught me how to do this. And this is sit down, record a video, but properly train from the get-go. And when you get action-oriented or a performance-based culture, that's your brand. I mean, it really is your brand. You're starting from the top down and everybody's working to, oh yeah, we could do this. Take suggestions. If you're screaming at your staff, nobody's going to give you suggestions. Yeah. So building that staff or building your contractors is so important as well. And the other thing might not sound that big, but there's two things. If you're working with people overseas, check out what type of cell phone they're using, their internet, and their computers. If we have If we invest in them, we'll buy them computers, buy them phones, make sure that their internet's right.
Yep.
That gets them up to speed. But what was I going to say? Something about the contractors. Anyways, it's just so important for those things to happen. And then consistently build content. Build content on your brand. I've got one keyword phrase. I was doing a podcast once on just keywords.
Okay.
And we had Chewy number one. This is all for the one keyword under the one brand I had. Chewy number one, Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, a couple of others. All 4 images were ours. And then the whole second page, except one, were all from our influencers writing content or from press releases or content being driven. Now, somebody types in that, who's the authority?
And naturally, you become the authority. You're naturally the brand. You're top of mind. That's what this is all about. I want to go back to something you said earlier. You mentioned brokers. And one of the fascinating things that I'm seeing now that there are literally dozens of these aggregators and investors that are jumping in is, many of them are proactively reaching out to brands that didn't realize they were about to be sold. And they're having conversations saying, hey, I've been watching you. I love your brand and I want to make you this offer. And brands are saying, I didn't realize that people were watching. I didn't realize that you could put together an offer that had millions of dollars in it. How do you think about this process of brokers waiting for people to reach out directly to you, potentially doing a strategic deal? How realistic are some of these options for different types of sellers, especially if the seller isn't necessarily on the same timeline as a potential investor?
If you're in a good mastermind, you can start to ask about brokers and you'll probably get some feedback. I mean, there are a lot out there. I like to be proactive, reach out, talk to a broker and make sure that you get, some references or referrals.
Yeah.
And then typically what I found, I'm not sure about you, James, but they want to work with you. The more that they can help you, and there's no charge.
Yeah.
Usually it's, look, let's take a look at your business. And then if they can get it built to a certain point, then they're interested. It's win-win. They'll get more money for it, more money in their jeans, more money over to you.
Yep.
And it's important where I see a lot of people going the wrong way are trying to do it themselves. And they're just messing it up because they don't want to pay the brokerage fee, right? So anyways, I think that if you're trying to do something on your own and you're trying to sell it and you're trying just to save a few points, you're missing out on an extra zero.
So as a mastermind manager, if I can call you that, the manager of a mastermind, what changes are you having to make with regards to your content, the way you interact with members? Now that there's all this investment activity, how are you having to adapt to that to provide more of the right kind of the relevant questions and answers, discussions? How does that work today?
Well, it's finding the right people as members to come in. So, getting XYZ aggregator, to join, getting them to present, right from the start to the finish, what to expect, how to put together an exit plan, how to run or how to minimize expenses, what to look for. And these are the things that you can put not through just like, say, Tim or myself. There's a lot more smarter people out there that know a heck of a lot more about putting a deal together. Yeah. Get them in, get them talking. And then if they're part of the group, there's always questions, especially like within a Facebook group that, okay, they're being tagged and then you're getting the information. It's probably the easiest thing.
So I guess you've partly answered this question, but from the sellers in your group that have gone on to sell their business, what kind of unexpected insights have they been able to bring back to the remaining members who haven't yet sold their business? What kinds of things have you learned or have they learned where you said, wow, we just didn't realize that was going on? That's really useful insight.
First of all, probably one of the main issues is due diligence. It's not just, oh, it's done and over. Somebody makes you an offer. So we hear that a lot, that they weren't prepared for the offer to come in, or at first look, to the actual check being signed.
Yep.
And then it's the differences in deals. So people that have said, no, I don't want to sell right now, and see different deals coming through, either getting a portion up front, being paid a consulting fee, a performance-based deal. There's all sorts of deals on the table. Let's say, I'm trying to think, what is, probably the people that I'm thinking of that would come up with, I probably would say that some of them would say that they sold too quick. They sold too quick. And I know one person in particular that should have shopped around. Don't take the first deal. These are pretty, standard sort of thoughts, but it's so important. The structure of the deal, how long is it going to take? At the end of the day, what are the fees associated with it? That, are there any hidden fees? What is my earnout? What's my act? What can cause me not to get that earnout? So, I had one person, now they weren't part of this group, but was in another group that ended up about 6 months into the deal, a lawsuit was filed. It did not get disclosed. Guess what happens to the deal? So these are things that have to come out, even it's the worst information. If it looks bad on you, if it's a skeleton in your closet, during that due diligence process, you really do have to bring it out and say, is there any chance of a lawsuit? Well, let me think. Because if there is, that could affect, if something comes up, that could affect it. Now, I remember
disclose.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it used to be, and who was it? I don't know. I was at the Prosper show, and somebody was talking about taxes and not disclosing their taxes.
Yeah,
I think it was you.
Yeah,
that was talking about it. Yeah. And anyways, I mean, all these little things have to be upfront. I had a tech incubator, and this is back probably 1999, and I had an offer come in. I had no idea how long the process would be. This is critical. If it takes you off your game, because the process is you're going to be absorbed into this to get that paycheck. And if you're not prepared to do that, you either have to bring somebody in who can help you, or you're going to take your eye off your business. And that could have some really severe effects.
Especially if you have a hyper growth business like many Amazon brands are.
Yeah.
You're 40, 50% growth each year. And all of a sudden you're now sitting with a potential offer and you're growing 5% because you can't keep focusing on 25 hours a day. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. When you think about what a mastermind can do at this point to help members become successful, given that success now includes potentially a big lucrative external offer, where do you see yourself as a mastermind manager evolving the types of services and offerings that you provide today to help members do better when it finally comes time to exit?
Probably the best thing that we can do is provide the best resources possible. If you're in a mastermind, and another thing I would probably do is examine who's involved with the mastermind. Have they been involved with Amazon? Are they doing anything other than that, or are they just a couple of people that are giving you some wisdom, at your expense? I think it's important that you have top people involved, and that you're getting the resources. So a lot of the times in masterminds, like our mastermind, we'll have resource materials, we'll have files there, we'll have training there that people can go and talk about. The other thing is, are they willing to discuss it? Are you able to, if people have an interest in a topic, can it be fairly rapidly talked about? If people need, oh, hey, I'm going to be exiting, or what can I do? Let's do a hot seat so we can improve the listing. Yep. Or just the ability to build the overall online business. So you have to have those types of members and experts involved. That's probably the best thing that I can advise people to go out and hunt out groups out there that can provide that information.
Norma, I want to wrap up our conversation today by asking you a little bit of a loaded question. Some of these investors are paying fairly high multiples for some of the private label brands they're buying. How do you see them getting the value they need out of that investment? These private label brands that have grown quickly and they know to convince somebody that they're ripe for purchase. How do these investors get their value out of these businesses? What do the investors need to do to take it to the next level?
Well, I think you have to gauge the business you're going to be buying. And if the business is already fully optimized and it has whatever growth it is, that's simple. But as an investor going out and trying to find a business that quite hasn't blossomed, they don't understand PPC properly. Yeah. They haven't built their community. Great brand, great look. That's where the investor can take their time, as long as they have the team, and build up and blow up the company. There's so many opportunities. I see it all the time where I'm looking at fairly good. I'm talking about just recently this week, I'm looking at this 8-figure, $16 million company on Amazon. And I'm looking at their listings and going, give it to me. Just,
yeah.
I wish.
That's beautiful if you can take that on and make the easy upgrades.
But it's finding those diamonds in the rough. And it doesn't even have to be a diamond. It could be a piece of coal. But there's so many sellers out there that just don't have quite that expertise. So out of a 10, you're looking at a 5, or look at a 6, where you've got that wiggle room to bring in your group and to make this thing pop, to become the authority. Too many brands are afraid to spend any money to becoming the authority. And there's so many out there that could just do a fantastic job. That's where you take advantage as an investor.
Norma, I want to thank you for joining us today on the Buy Box Experts podcast. For those of you interested in learning more about the Centurion League, please visit privatelabellegion.com/mastermind. Join us again next time on the Buy Box Experts podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Getida. Getida is a global leader in Amazon FBA auditing and reimbursements. Getida analyzes your Amazon data, reconciles your FBA inventory, and files claims for reimbursements on your behalf. No obligations, no hidden fees, just Getida recovering your money. Getida helps you get your money back into your pockets so you can focus on investing in more inventory and growing your business. To learn more, check out Getida.com. That's GETIDA.com.
Thanks for listening to the Buy Box Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.